This meeting is being recorded.
Hello, welcome to another episode of the SI Show. Once again, we have Brian here, and we also have a guest, Dave of all people. Dave, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us your
everyone,
OPS?
I'm Dave. My type is MF TiSe Consume Play Sleep Blast.
Okay, thank you. So we'll get some interesting SE perspective on this show, and we'll also be talking more in depth about SI. So yeah, take it away, Brian.
Okay, cool. All right, we're going to be kind of flying by the seat of our pants here, but we hope to achieve the goal of, I guess, some century for you here to start off. What came to me is that what's objective here? It's like, well, it's about SI, and made it a little funny with Laura and I's name, Laura and Brian, so it's a lab, so to speak. But if we could offer folks in this series things that are like, we're investigating SI, if we can illuminate some things about SI and Century in general, and if we can give folks a chance to walk away with some insights, I think that's going to be a success for this series. And so we're going to try to dabble in and out all kinds of different 512 component parts throughout the series. But today, Dave and Laura both have their own channels, so I kind of feel like I'm with a couple veterans in the community here, been in it a lot longer than I have. And so we extended an offer to Dave, and he was gracious enough to join us here today. So Dave, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and otherwise we're gonna work you in to make sure that as we learn about SI, we can compare and contrast with SE.
Yeah, sure. So I've been in the OP community for almost 5 years now. Well, or I started looking at it like 4.5 years ago, I guess. Got typed in the beginning of 2019. Was a little bit into MBTI before that. Was typed INFJ, of course. And, kind of wrote off the MBTI stuff until I found OPS. And then, I've been in it ever since. I have a channel where I do interviews with people, and OPS has been a great thing for me, and I'm really glad to be a part of this community and glad to be on here with y'all to talk about SI versus SE. So
awesome.
Yeah, well, we're really glad to have you too. Thank you.
Yeah, it's wow, I didn't realize 5 years, and Laura, what, 4 for you, if I recall correctly?
I joined in October 2018.
Wow.
So it's been over 4 years now. Yeah, hard to believe it's been that long. What did I do before OPS?
Yeah, time flew, right?
I don't know how to react.
Maybe I had more of a life before that.
Well, there's that CULT word that they throw out there, right? I guess you get in it and you kind of like it's kind of like a thing.
Yeah.
So
So anyway,
CULT, is that like an acronym? What does that stand for?
What is that?
The CULT, is that an acronym? What does that stand for?
No, I don't. I actually haven't turned that into an acronym. I think CULT just stands for an abbreviation for culture. So it's OPS culture. Okay. So we'll keep it simple like that.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good.
Culture is like...
we try to have some any fun on this channel, because any is like the flip side of the SI coin. So, and we'll try not to make it too overwhelming for Dave, because he doesn't have any in a stack. So
be all right. If I pass out.
That's kind of another question, is kind of how do you experience the SI any axis? What is that like for you?
What is the SE and I axis for me? Sorry, was that the question?
Or SINE axis.
Oh, what is it like for me? I don't know. I don't feel like I have the greatest feel for it. I feel like I'm kind of still learning. I think I just noticed like little weird, maybe not weird, but like quirky things about the use of language and that sort of thing that's associated with that axis. I feel like words tend to have more of a meaning and more of a specific meaning than they would with with SE, for example. So like a lot of times I hear SIs use words that nobody else knows what they mean, or they have like their own special definition for it. And then I have to kind of clarify a little bit. And also with that, there's still like a kind of a precision there where like they're going to use this exact word for this exact thing. So like SEs just kind of throw around words and don't really fit necessarily to kind of describe the NI of something, but there is an importance on words and language, it feels like, from that axis, looking at more of the savior SI side of that. For me, there seems like there is a very big fascination with being surprised, especially when it comes to like movies, stories, or anything that has like a connection to something that is very foreign and has like a relationship to that. I find that NEs tend to really find those sorts of things interesting and tend to get bored with a lot of stuff that, at least conceptually, is kind of the same as everything else. Like if you find a bunch of, for example, movies with a similar plot line that you can predict, NEs are not a big fan of that. So yeah, there's an element of wanting an element of surprise, but also like a really big appreciation for the sensory, probably more than SI would have, I would say. So yeah, that's kind of the way I'm seeing it, I guess, or just the anecdotes from it, really, because I don't, fully get what's going on there with those two functions, to be honest. But
yeah, and that's really valuable, because to understand what the others find, SE and I's perception of SI and E is, and vice versa, I think gives that comparison and contrast that's going to maybe help us all in this series to learn a little bit from each other and to illuminate it for others as well. So good inputs. And that thing about precision in words, I had no clue that was an SI thing until OPS. But it makes a lot of sense now that I hear people say that. You're right. We get a little wrapped around the axle with specific words and versus generalized words and stuff of that nature. So it's just cool to learn those types of ways different brains are processing things.
Well, I know that because I get nailed on the S all the time from you guys. It's like, wait, you said this, and I was like, oh, yeah, I guess that's not really. Yeah, I guess I should use this instead.
Gotcha.
That's probably a lot.
Well, with that, I'm going to kind of back up. And like Laura said, we're trying to have some indie fun here. I hope I don't overdo it. I've got a few whiteboards. Anybody that knows me knows that won't be a surprise. And also, we're gonna have a little indie fun, as Laura said. So we got an indie fish bowl here with some ping pong balls in it. So we'll be trying to integrate that into the overall episode as well. So bear with us. We might make some mistakes. It might not go great, but we'll hopefully have a little fun in the process. So the first thing I want to do is...
And I can practice with my demon too.
Yes,
so
yes.
There's bonus. And you're demon NE, but you're barely demon NE. You're like, what, 51-49, something like that?
Like double activated, I think, right, on the NE?
Yeah, it's double activated feminine. So it feels... And I said this in our friendship, it feels like it's more
not a glass lizard, but double activated demon NE. Yeah.
Okay. So what I want to do is stop and say, okay, well, we're talking about sensory, SE and SI, right? So let's back up to the real fundamentals here and cover some basics and stuff, right? So I guess we'll have our first little contest here. Who wants to try to win 5 points for saying something super basic you probably learned in junior high school? So who wants to answer the question? Either one.
I would have said yes until you said it's supposed to be super basic. Now I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get it wrong.
It's real easy. It's
that
real easy,
I learned in junior high school.
I didn't learn a lot in junior high, so I'll give it a shot. Yeah.
Okay, good. Thanks for being a sport. So what are the 5 senses that we were taught that humans have?
Taste, touch, sound, smell, touch, sight.
Right. All right. So Dave get some points here. So I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'll keep score. So, but I say 5 points. So I'll give you 5 points, Dave. And as we work through this, maybe we'll keep score, maybe we won't. But yes. So the basics, the things we have in common, SE and SI, and again, this is very fundamental. So if we don't bore people, are those things. And so to me, I was like, how do I approach telling somebody on the street, what's SE and SI? I don't know if you run into that problem, but people in my family, I was like, what are you talking about? And so I kind of like adapted to say, okay, well, we have our senses. And then, we prioritize that different ways. The way our brains are wired tend to be different from one another and those types of things, right? So, and then I looked through the Myers-Briggs type materials, and there's a card. And I hope I'm not breaking any laws here, but here's the card. And what it does is it basically breaks down in 5 dimensions what, generally speaking, sensory and intuition is. So for the next quiz here, and if you want to play it, I've got an acronym for you, and I want to see if somebody could guess what the acronym stands for. Now this is hard, so you get 25 points if you get it right, and you don't get any points wrong if you miss it. So who wants to go?
Laura, you're up.
Laura.
Well, I'll go. Yeah.
Okay. So it's just not fair, but it's just fun, right? So when I was taking the certification, I noticed that they have these 5 words for both sensory and intuition. So in intuition, there's 5 letters that kind of correspond to that. So I made an acronym out of it called I-TACO. So it's I, T, A, C, and O are the ways that some of the personality code folks describe what intuition is. So why don't you take a crack at what that is, Laura, and see if there's a chance you could get it right.
Okay. Well, when I think of I-TACO, like I think of like a taco that's pleasing to the eye, like somebody's really sexy. They're an I-TACO, because you think of like tacos are yummy, so it's like the person is yummy, and yummy is kind of like a word for somebody's really good looking. They're yummy. They're like an I-TACO.
Awesome.
And I think how it connects with intuition is just kind of the puns and the play on words.
Okay, well, good. So let me clarify, because I didn't give you a fair chance. Each of those 5 letters are a word that they use to describe the quality of intuition. And so I'm going to do that first, and then we'll cover the 5 words that they use to say what sensory is as a contrast. So this is not fair. So I'm going to go ahead and just unveil it for you and give you the points anyway, right? Who cares? So the I stands for imagination. The T stands for theoretical. The A stands for abstract, and I think a lot of us, that's the kind of word that I mostly think of when I think of intuition. It's abstract. It's not sensory. You can't quite put your hands around it. The C stands for conceptual, and the O stands for, and this one I was a little not quite sure at first, but I think I've grown accustomed to it, is original. So like you think of like some folks who have a lot of intuition, who are very creative, they tend to have those qualities: imagination, theoretical, if it's like something technical or otherwise, abstract, creative, conceptual, and original. So anyway, we'll abort the board game here because that's not going too well. But in any case, that is kind of like a really good way, I think, to start to kind of compare and contrast what sensory is, because it's not those things, right? Mm-hmm. So with that, then there's an acronym that I came up with for the sensory, and it's CREPT. So does anybody want to take a chance at what the Myers-Briggs folks say are the 5 general labels that go along with describing what sensory is versus intuition? Again, let's just abort the points and all that crap.
The acronym is CREPT, was that right?
Yes. So it's 5 words, and that's the acronym.
Okay. Well, I guess they're not the 5 senses, even though you had those on there. It doesn't really match up. Right. Concrete, is that one of them?
It is.
Okay.
It is.
Evidence?
Close. That could be a really good one. Their actual word is experienced. Experiential.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Perceived? No. Perceived.
The P is for practical.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Tangible?
T, it could very well have been a good one. And I'm going to cover the other one first. So you did real good. So it's concrete, realistic, experiential, practical, and then the T. What do you think that stands for? This is the one I'm not quite sure about that I completely agree with, and it tends to be kind of like why people get their minds in a certain interpretive lens about what SI and SE are, especially SI, and it's the word traditional.
Okay, yeah, that is strange.
Yeah, and I think, and you guys,
there's nothing traditional about SE, man.
Yeah, because I would definitely associate that more with SI.
Yes, and in the OPS system, and I wanted to get your exact point on that. To me, coming into OPS, I've been in just a little over a year now, joined February of 2022. Traditional was a big mindset for me, for right or wrong. I could have been interpreting it wrong. I'm not saying other people outside of OPS did that, but to me it was, memory and tradition and ritual and all those different things, and those stereotypes with SI were pretty permanent in my head. And then along the way, in OPS, I kind of got my hand slapped a few times by folks saying, that's not so much true. OI/SI doesn't really do that. So I want to hear you guys comment on that, if any. Why that's the case.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about I guess SI, like, anecdotally on the surface, it can look like somebody's traditional, but SI in the form of itself has in itself nothing to do with tradition. Maybe a focus on that function can present itself. The symptom of SI could that you tend to be more traditional. I don't know, but Laura could probably talk on that better than I could.
Well, I guess it's traditional, not so much with society's traditions, because I think that is maybe more DE and OPS, or particularly FE, kind of like going by what other people value. But SI in itself, it's not so much society's traditions. It's more like, you get comfortable doing things a certain way. It's in your box. It's organized. So you don't want to unnecessarily change things up just for the sake of changing. So I think that's where the traditional comes in.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and it does. So I guess it kind of applies outside of OPS and in OPS in some sense, but it's not one of those explicit things that you would, I guess, use to describe what SI is, right? It may or may not apply. And so anyway, I found that one kind of curious. So anyway, concrete, practical, experiential, realistic, those I think match pretty much all the personality codes for SI and sensory in general. Traditional might be one that take it or leave it, buyer's choice, so to speak. Yeah. Okay. Well, cool. So anyway, so again, whiteboard here. Hopefully it shows up on the screen. But Sensory 101. Just to kick us off before we start getting into some of the specifics about SE and SI, just how I kind of see it. You got your five senses. Pick any two people on the planet and they get out in a scenario, they might engage it differently, but they're all dealing with the same five senses. And if they are dealing with senses, then they're dealing with these, four of these five or five of these things as well. And then you have your OI or OE person who have our brain wired one versus the other, as we all know. And so anyway, I just want to kind of start off with that. It's kind of the basics. Again, it's probably boring and repetitious, but nonetheless, it's a good foundation. So with that, Dave, we want to kind of start asking you maybe some questions and give you the floor a bit. But before we do that, I want to ask you from some experiences that you shared with me, and I'm gonna do a little indie fun here. So I'm gonna pull out a ping pong ball. There's three of them here. And ask you to talk about SE from one of these frameworks of things you told me about. Okay. So the first one I pulled out is the letter B. What do you think that stands for?
Coach B.
No, it's not me. It stands for something you told me that you is a big part of your life, maybe in the past, maybe.
Boxing, right?
Yeah, boxing. So talk about SE from your own perspective and how you think that works into your boxing life.
Yeah, so I think you have a lot of people in boxing that tend to be SE users, not all of them, but probably going to be a sport that you gravitate towards because there isn't a lot of like, it's more of a dynamic sport. So it's not something that you're going to have to be in touch with your OI as much, I would say, although that doesn't come in handy in a lot of ways. So yeah, I mean, I guess everyone kind of knows how boxing works. It's not complicated, right? You punch the other guy and you try not to get punched, yeah. And so generally that sport lends itself to kind of reacting, right? You are initiating, but it's more of a dance where I do this, you do this, then I do that, and we're just going back and forth like that. There's no like structure of like steps, like I do this, then this, and this, and this, and this. Maybe I have scenarios set up, but not really so much, right? So it is a thing where you are just reacting in like kind of a, I guess, sensory way, which I think would be easier, I would say, with SE. Not that you can't be a good boxer with other functions, plenty of other boxers that have that. But yeah, I think you're going to feel more comfortable doing that. I know other sports, there's definitely more, what's the word? There's more deliberate practice with a certain line of actions, and they tend to be more OI. Boxing is one of the most OE sports that you can do, right? Mm-hmm. You're in the moment, you're reacting, and you're in sort of more of a flow state, I think, at least for an SE user when I'm boxing, because I'm not thinking about anything. I'm just trying to flow through that fight, like water would flow through a waterfall. I don't know. So yeah, the sport feels very SE to me, if I can conclude that with something. Yeah.
Yeah, could you elaborate a little bit more on the flow state part? That's interesting.
Yeah. So for me, I feel like I'm in a flow state, and I think it might differ per which type, I would assume. When basically I'm reacting to an environment in a way where no thought is required. And if you've done like a sport like boxing for a really long time, and you have all of the punches down, combination, movements, you've been through however many boxing scenarios, there's no thinking. You're literally just in a dance, right? You're in sort of a hypnosis there where nothing else, you're not thinking about anything else. You can't, because you're getting a punch if you do that, right? So me, the flow state is just this complete back and forth. And there is definitely like a connection to kind of dancing with the environment in that way. It'd be the same thing if I was rock climbing, if I was doing like an obstacle course or something like that. On the monkey bars, I don't know. I know that's like really stereotypical of an SE to say, but for me, like physical challenges like that, where it doesn't require a lot of precision, for me, put me in a state where I'm just kind of free to react and to adjust, which is fun for me.
Yeah, that's real insightful. It makes a lot of sense too. So like, obviously you said SE and SI users both could be great boxers, and I'm sure
absolutely, yeah.
There's some, if you list the top 20 boxers, I'm sure it's a hybrid, but more likely than not, maybe SE has a little advantage with the same physical skill set, right? Is that kind of what I'm interpreting?
I don't want to really make that conclusion because I'm not sure, but I think I can say that SEs will tend to gravitate towards doing boxing. And so that's probably why you have more SEs there. But there's other aspects of boxing other than, say, like just being in the ring and fighting. If you have someone with SI and they're used to a routine, they're used to showing up every day, they're used to, being able to follow the instructions of their coach, and they're, working their ass off every day, they're going to kick the SE user's ass, right? So SI is not just in the actual sport of it, but also in what you do in preparation and all this other stuff. So I don't know if I would feel comfortable saying that like an SE user is just going to be better than SI most of the time. It feels more like SEs are going to just immediately be like, oh, this would be fun. Whereas maybe not so much for SIs. I'm not really sure though.
So would it be fair to say that maybe just adapt in the moment a little bit more fluidly? Comes, okay, this is cool. I can get in the flow state here, even though I haven't, done this before. Mm-hmm. Is that kind of fair to say?
I don't know. I'd have to ask y'all, right? So for me, it's totally the case. And I'm assuming because it is that way for me, that it's that way for SE people, which might not be. But I'm wondering for like an SI person, what would you prefer? Something like tennis or something like golf, right? Would you prefer something that's like, or would you prefer something where you can slowly, steady, sort of build on something and take your time? Like what would be the preference there?
Yeah, go ahead, Laura.
Well, I don't really practice any sports myself, but I'm guessing it would be something more like golf or maybe bowling or just something where you can kind of, you can plan a course of action. You can kind of think about what you want to do. You know, golf is a lot of precision. You know, you got to use the right type of club, and you got to position it in just the right spot and use just the right amount of force. You know, I think of Tiger Woods, who's lead SI, and you know, he's one of the best golfers in the world. So
yeah. Okay. Excellent. So I'm gonna go into the thing here. That was a real good insight on that, especially the flow part for myself. And okay, so very similar, but you mentioned W. What do you think that stands for?
Yeah, so wrestling is a different animal than boxing, and I think it lends itself probably more to SI. Again, I feel like I'm kind of using an anecdote land a little bit here because I don't have SI myself, but I think I've also heard Dave and Shan mentioned that a lot of the wrestlers tend to be SI. I don't know how much data they really have on that. Maybe they have a lot. I don't know. But I can see how SI would lend itself to wrestling in a couple ways. So for those that are not familiar with wrestling, I'm not talking about like pro wrestling. I'm talking about like Olympic style wrestling. Basically, the goal is you start on your feet and you attempt to get the other person on the ground. And then if you can, pin them to their back, hold them there for 2 seconds, you win the match. If you don't win the match that way, you just win the match based on point accumulation, which comes from controlling your opponent that you get scored with over time. So the thing that the really, really good wrestlers have that separate the great ones from the good ones are the wrestlers that can do something called chain wrestling. So chain wrestling is where you are actually not just practicing moves, just the move itself, but you're practicing a set chain of moves. And this is a chain that could go on for potentially 20 steps if you're good at it, right? So like if I'm wrestling somebody and I'm someone who has, you know, using this sort of chain wrestling concept, I might have not just practiced how to shoot in on the person, but I might have practiced actually a whole set of stuff. So for example, I might have practiced an arm drag to get them out of position, a double leg afterwards, turning the corner immediately when they go down to put my hook in, and then to actually turn to this side to get the head in this way. Like I might have all these things, and I'm not just practicing each individual move, but I'm practicing them together. And I'm doing that in a way where not only the moves themselves are really fast and efficient, but the entire chain, there's no lag time. There's no thinking, there's no hesitating, nothing. So the best wrestlers are able to do that. For me as an SE user, I don't like doing that. I hated, even though that was probably the most successful thing to do, for me, it was more about like, I'm going to be faster than you. You're not going to know what I'm going to do when I do it. And then when we get in a position, I'm going to do a bunch of weird shit that you won't know how to react to. And I'm going to rely on my own reaction to get you somewhere. But I'm not going to plan the state of stuff because I'm lazy, you know. But you can't do that and get to the highest level. You have to adopt this sort of chain wrestling. And to me, that feels more SI, you know, to actually have these really long chains, and you don't have just one, you have a lot of them, right? And to really practice and to be able to sit there and do that routine thousands and thousands of times. It's one thing to practice one move 1,000 times, another thing to practice a whole routine 1,000s of times, and then all your routines, right? It's a lot of work and it takes a lot of focus, but that's what you end up having the best wrestlers doing that. And it essentially is a game of control. I mean, I know OI is control, wrestling is control, therefore that may or may not be the same thing, but it is a game where you score points if you control the other person, right? So it is, in a way, you are narrowing down the other person physically, you know what I mean? To where they can't do nothing, right? And you win. So maybe that lends itself to SI. I would think so, maybe on an abstract level, but yeah, that would be my guess there.
Well, that's real fascinating
because that's kind of interesting because I always thought about like boxing and wrestling kind of being, you know, similar in so many ways, but I'm thinking
ways,
more,
sure, yeah.
It's a one-on-one competition. It's very close physical contact. And I guess, you know, boxing, I guess you could think of that as controlling them because you're pushing them, you know, towards like trying to corner them in the ring. But,
sure.
but yeah, so it's interesting how one is kind of more SC and one is more SI, because I didn't really think of it that way.
Yeah. And they do have a lot of common, right? Outside
yes.
of the debate. So you're definitely right there. But but yeah, if I can find a difference between the two, it would kind of be in those, I guess, those aspects a little bit. But there is a sense of
really
control
good.
in boxing, you're right.
You know, I kind of pulled these balls out of here fortuitously lucky in that order, but it's good framing, you know. So boxing maybe a little bit more naturally SE, and wrestling is kind of a hybrid. So like, okay, so you're ISTP, SE Savior, right? So talk a little bit about your use. Of course, SI, well, life requires SI, right? For everything. So, you know, you go to school, whatever, SI is everywhere. So if you have an SE strength in boxing, if you went into wrestling, say for example, wrestling was your favorite thing. So, and you know, you got the SE down and you got your athletic skills. How did SI maybe work against you, if at all, as you learned how to wrestle and move up the ranks of that sport?
If we're like kind of comparing SI to kind of like diligence and being disciplined and stuff like that, then yeah, that was definitely a tough thing. I remember, joining the team and we had to run like 3 miles or something. And I'd done a bunch of sports before. I never had to run 3 miles. I didn't even know conceptually how long that was. I was like, okay, we're running, and I'm tired in like 5 minutes. I'm like, oh, like what is this shit? Like from the first day. Oh, sorry, I don't know if I can cuss on here. Sorry about that. And it just started from there where I was just like, what is this? You have to work so hard at this. I've never worked this hard at anything ever. You know what I mean? And you got to show up every day. You got to do the same stuff every day. And it is not, you know, wrestling's fun, but like, you know, it takes a lot of training and a lot of work, because like when you wrestle someone, this isn't like playing baseball or something where you get a break, you know, you got to run a little bit, you know, not to diss baseball, but like you're in like a full out sprint for 7 minutes, basically. That's what it feels like for your heart. Like you got to be in really good shape and you got to know your stuff, you know? So in that aspect, it was definitely an eye opener for me, you know, like style wise, like, I guess if I were to construct like an SI wrestler, like a really good chain wrestler, I had a really tough time because, you know, I'm looking for those moments of where I can react. And if you have a chain of moves set up and there's no lag time between them, I can't do any weird stuff to throw you off. You know, I can't use my athleticism to beat you, because there's no room for that even. You know what I mean? So that
because it's like it's more of a sequence, so it's, you know, you're executing versus reacting. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Yeah. There's a focus for me reacting in the moment, not having anything set up or whatever. Just my body knows what to do and I let it do that. I don't like having something set. It tends to throw me off. But if you wrestle someone that has their routine down, they do it so quickly, you don't have time to react. You don't have time to throw them off. And that can be really difficult, you know. Yeah.
All right, that's excellent. So I don't want us to bore anybody who's watching who's not a sports fan, but I found that very fascinating. But pivot, the third ping pong ball to ask you about the SE experience is just L, which stands for life, just anything in life, you know. So, you know, open this up for maybe some other aspects of your overall living experience. What's it like to be an SE versus SI?
Yeah, it's going to be me guessing again, because I've never been SI before. So, a lot of these things we might actually have in common. Like what we talked about before with the maps and geography and stuff, we found out like masculine SE, masculine SI are actually pretty similar there, right? I think living life as an SC, there's a couple things. One thing, you tend to just take things at face value. That's a big thing there. I mean, not always, but it's just more like, which can probably be said for SI in some ways, where what happens, and you don't necessarily look into what's behind that unless you feel kind of some need to do that. SE will easily look at something, there's missing information there, and there's a very I'll give you an analogy. So like, let's say you're doing a puzzle, right? And you're trying to figure, you don't even know what this puzzle is. You're just building it, whatever. You got like, for someone who's really into SC land, there'd be like 3 pieces missing in the puzzle. And you're still like, I don't know what that is still. You do know what it is, but you won't trust it because you need all the data, right? Whereas the converse, an eye user, they might have 5 pieces together and like, it's a rabbit. They may or may not be right, but so like SE is very much like, if I don't have all of the data, I don't feel comfortable making a guess, even if I do have a guess. Like I need more information. I need more data on something. What else? One thing I should say, it's not, you're in the present moment. We're not like Zen masters or anything like that. I think that should probably be debunked, because then SE just sounds super nice. SE has the same problems that all the other functions have in that regard. Nobody is really in the present for the most part, unless you've had just a lot of training, or you've intentionally tried to do that, right? What generally can look like in the moment is that we're all in our heads all the time. It's just how it is, right? But it's just more about like, what is the content of those things that are in your head? And as an SE, you're probably going to be thinking, maybe not as long-term, right? You might be thinking of like dinner later, blah, blah, blah. Like, oh, this coat is really itchy, or blah, 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 or I'm in a really bad mood, or blah, blah, blah. But short-term things, right? Like you're not really going past the day usually, unless there's an NI fear of something over there. Like, oh, there's something later this week that's going to control what I do. Like, oh, okay, don't think about that. And then, you know what I mean? Whereas in Converse with an NI, they might be like, we have this thing planned out. And, I might not be too focused on stuff that's going on now, but what I'm doing needs to be building towards that thing. Right. So SE, you're not present, like just here. You still have all the static in your brain, but it's going to be more short-term stuff, or more stuff that's relevant to the day, which can actually be really bad, because you can really feel like if the day's bad, it can kind of have this feeling like your whole life's bad. You can't really see past the day sometimes. And so like you're trapped in the present moment in a way that isn't nice, right? You can't like get through it because of some future thing that you have over there. So other than that, living life as an SE, there is, and this might be with just being play as well, where it's just like, I'm just usually just going to wing it most of the time. I'm probably not going to prepare too much for stuff. It's draining, and usually when I wing it, it works out anyway. So for stuff, I'm just not going to over prepare. And if I do over prepare, it messes me up. Right? If I think about it too much, it messes me up. So there's definitely more of a confidence in winging it, and sometimes a better result from that. Not always, but a better result, because it came out sort of naturally, right? If I try to confine myself too much, then things can come off very awkward. Like imagine an interview or something like that. If I plan out what I'm going to say in this interview, I'm totally screwed. If I go in there with a positive mood, and I already have kind of maybe I processed that stuff days before, but I don't go in there with any preparation, I'm going to be able to communicate much better than, okay, what did I write down for this answer? You know what I mean? Like I can't do that.
Okay.
So if
you heard something word for word too, then it comes off more robotic too.
It can. Unless you're good. Some people are good at that though. They can do it word for word and it'll sound completely natural. I'm not one of those people for sure.
Well, that's real fascinating for me, because I want to hear more about you, but just speaking from my own experience, I'm kind of that way too. If I'm shooting from the hip, it's going to be much better than, like I remember like getting the MBA, I had, give a presentation. Here's your part to memorize. And you say you're the third person in the sequence. And if you don't say it, you screw somebody else after you. I'd screw that shit up every time, because I'm so worried about, I got to say my part. What was I supposed to say? And then I wasn't great at memorizing. So to me, it was just like, hey, just tell me the concept and I'll just blurb it out. So maybe it's an OE thing in my case, because I have so much OE in my brain as well.
Yeah, you also play savior. Maybe a bit of that, I would think.
Okay.
That's right. But maybe that's just a digital thing.
I think it requires some more degree of organization. I don't think it'd be quite as comfortable doing it to the degree that you have. Like I kind of have to know, okay, here's what we're going to do, and here's the order that we're going to do it in. But I also can't just memorize word for word either. And I do have play seconds, so I guess that's somewhat helpful. But by being SI at the top, it is important that it's organized and it's going to flow smoothly.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess that just that SI to NI ratio, I guess, so to speak, right, is going to play into that as well, as to whether you want to script or you want to wing it. I tend to, that's why I thought I might be play first at one point, because I prefer to wing it. But as you guys know from scripting this out, I definitely do that as well. So I'm kind of 50-50 on it. But in any case, all right, Dave, thanks for sharing that. That's very good. insight.
I can maybe add one more thing because it was just a lot of, I think, being a censor in that probably. I can say one thing that is very prominent with me, but this might also just be a me thing. I don't know. This is also me being SE by saying there isn't a general rule here. There's individual stuff. That's also what we do. But with being SE, change is almost always good, even if it's bad, which I know sounds crazy, but like change can really suck sometimes if it's a change from something good to something worse. But my brain always wants to be like, yeah, but new opportunities, new stuff. Don't worry, it's going to be great because, yeah, even though you perceive this as being a worse thing, SE will go to work with like, what about this, new experiences, new this. And I'm like, you know what, it's not that bad. So like, change in the immediate effect emotionally can be really bad. But eventually always going to go to work and you're going to feel excited about it probably. So, which can be, the whole grass is on the greener side effect. Really, everyone has that, but like to SEs, there's probably a lot of that. So you'll jump to something you think is better just because it's new and ends up not being better, So.
So I'm gonna offer y'all something. Again, you guys are much more veteran at this than me, but I wanted to offer this. That's because one thing that comes to mind to me when I think of OE is you in the moment you pivot to what is the most appealing. And so like for like if I'm brainstorming with someone, I'm going to pivot to the next abstract, the conceptual thing. And I'm going to be very comfortable with that. Here we are, we're kind of resource managing, and I'll pivot to the next idea. And I could fluidly go with that. It seems to me, and tell me if I'm right or wrong, that with SE, it's like, well, here's the physical resources, resource management wise. And in the moment, I'm going to kind of like, okay, here's what's available. It's like a menu of things. I'm going to pivot to what's most appealing. Is that fair or is that just wrong? It's fine if it's wrong.
Yeah, I'm just trying to like relay my own experience to see if I feel it. Yeah, to a degree, it almost feels more like something pops out and you're like, oh, that. I don't know if it's as concentrated of like, okay, here's my options. You do that, but like it's more of like an opportunity will come up and then you're just like,
So it's more automatic than it is maybe like processing it and pivoting.
It's like less deliberate. Yeah,
it's just
like
reactive.
what you're doing was more
this is better. Let me engage this, that type of thing.
Yeah. There's an excitement there. It's not not that SE users don't do that ever, but when I'm thinking of just pure SE, like what would fit to that? Yeah, it's like new opportunity. Well, there's an immediate gravitation towards it without maybe even knowing that much about it. Like I moved to Berlin without even having visited here before.
Wow.
I mean, it worked out, but it could have not worked out too,
Okay, so it worked out and you did it. And the word you said a while ago, confidence, comes to mind. So like you've been in the moment and pivoted or whatever the word is that's appropriate. And it's worked. So, hey, it'll work out next time as well. Is that kind of a fair thing to say?
Yeah, I don't know if that runs through our mind, actually. It could, but yeah, that's you. Yeah, I think for me, it feels like I am so attracted to this that I can't help but be confident. I'm not like deliberately finding if I should be confident about it or not. I just like, there's just a gravitation toward almost like an FI thing in a way. You know what I mean? Just like you know what I mean? Eventually that does run out, your SE wears down and like stuff stops being so new. And then hopefully you find your NI at that point and you start building stuff. But yeah, it's definitely like the weird sort of addiction that you can have. Now, this isn't everyone too, I should say that. This is another thing that people get wrong about SE. I know SEs that have lived in the same town their entire life, right? So not all SEs are just jumping all around the place, They have that in some other way, but don't try to type somebody.
You think it would depend too, like on their animals, like maybe like an SC savior, but who's also savior sleep might be more inclined to want to live in the same town their whole lives, but an SC savior or savior play might be more doing what you're doing or traveling.
Probably be more comfortable with that, I would imagine. Yeah. In theory, yeah.
I also wonder too, like if you're SC savior, if you're always kind of looking for new in the familiar. So like other people might see it's familiar, but you're always seeing new in it.
I wish we would do that, but I feel like, like
Okay.
if there's a book I really like, I'm going to read it once and it's done. If I have to read it again, I'm not going to be like, okay, let's look for what I didn't see the first time. I won't even expect that there'll be something new, which is
okay.
Yeah.
So maybe it's more NE then, because sometimes it'll be like, I think I'm seeking variety, but then people are like, that's not really variety, but I'm seeing something I didn't see before. So
yeah, I think that is more OI in a way. I think that's why y'all are usually able to like have one thing and kind of go over it, because you're expecting there to be like something you missed, right? Or something that's not there. And that's definitely like a lesson that SEs need to, especially consuming people need to remember that. No, you didn't get all the information the first time, even though you feel like you did. There's probably a lot that you missed, which I think OIs are more aware of that in general.
And that might be why, and of course, more applicable probably to SI than SE, but that might be why they put the T traditional in there, right? Because it's like reference to that, which you just said, so to speak.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna try the pickleball theory. This might be a disaster, but let's do it. I mentioned
the video. It's fun. No worries.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it'll be fun. But okay, so big picture wise, the flow of this, because I do have a script in my head, is talk about Century 101, the basics of it, independent of SI or SE, how that get combined. Then hear Dave's perspective on SE and SI, and then we'll get more from him on that too. But kind of as a segue to talking about SI, which is kind of the series theme here. So we got some things to cover there. Pickleball is a concept that I kind of came up with. So want to kind of compare and contrast SE and SI a little bit more. Wrestling was very illuminating, I thought, because it's a good hybrid of the two. So that was really good. But so here's the scenario. Bear with my abstractness here. So let's just say that Laura and Dave are both representing an athlete that has the same skill, the same athletic body, everything, right? So let's just, for example, let's just assume there's two versions of Tiger Woods. Okay, so Laura will be Tiger Woods with SI, Dom, Senior Savior, and Dave will be Tiger Woods with SE. And neither one of them in this hypothetical scenario, I know, bear with me, has ever seen or played table tennis or the game of tennis, right? So this is really out there, right? Wow. So that framework is set that way because I want to explore if they both got introduced extemporaneously to the game of pickleball. All right, so I have a theory about this. I want to hear you guys' opinion on it, validate or invalidate that. How would that go? You're up there, you introduce to the game, then none of you have ever heard it before. You don't have a reference point, but you get the same athletic skill set, right? Everything's the same except for SI and SE. So one of you guys, whoever's more comfortable, explain how you think that might go.
Like how would we go about learning the game? And
yeah, how would it go, and who would win the first competition if you played? That kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I can go ahead and go. So yeah, I guess. So are we playing pickleball? Are we playing ping pong?
Yes,
tennis?
it's pickleball. So you can be like, hey, here's a game. It's kind of like table tennis, right? It's kind of like tennis, but it's a smaller court. It's kind of like a little bit more accessible for more people. Okay. It's more fun than athletic, I think. I'm not quite sure. I've never played pickleball, but I hear people talking about it all the time.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I haven't played it either yet. It does look fun though. So I guess as an SE person, yeah, and there's going to be a lot of NI here too. These functions are two sides of one coin, so there's going to be some of that in there too. I can't like just doing SE. It wouldn't be possible, I think, for talking about this. So I hope that's okay. Yeah, knowing me, what I would do is you'd have the game. I'd probably watch someone play first just to get the gist of like kind of what's get the vibe of the game, and then probably play immediately. I probably wouldn't go over the rules or anything yet. I'd probably just kind of guess what those are and just by how they're playing or whatever, and then let them correct me when I mess it up. That's easier than someone just listing off, we do this. I'm not going to remember any of that, so I just jump into it. And then based off of that playthrough, I would try to then figure out or divide the different categories of the game in terms of like in terms of like mechanical skills. So like for me, I would look like this is. I haven't played it. I'm assuming it's as a similar dynamic to tennis. So I'm going to go off that.
Yes.
Or to ping pong. So I would break it up into categories. You'd have the serve. You'd have if the ball is hit on this side versus this side, so forehand, backhand. How to receive a serve, things like that. So I'd break up into categories of where you would have separate mechanical techniques that I would have to learn. And there would definitely be a huge focus on mechanics, meaning just how I physically have to move in the sport. So then I would say, okay, so there's a serve. So let me learn like a really basic serve. I'm just starting. So let me learn that and let me just practice it a bunch of times. Let me learn how to hit it with the forehand a bunch of times, like how to hold it properly, all that stuff. Same thing with, wait, this is forehand. This is backhand, right? Yeah, okay, forehand. Yeah. You know, typically how you would hit the ball when you're receiving a serve, whatever. I would break it into categories like that. And then I would practice those a lot. The goal with me is to get it to where I have a technique for each situation, and then I'm so comfortable with it, I don't think about it. I can just react. So the goal is getting to where I can react, where I can flow with it, right? I want to be like water in the game. I think I mentioned that before. Very Bruce Lee sort of quote, but I think it fits the SE and I access quite a bit. And then I would play, given those techniques, and I would find out where I'm kind of lacking. Once I feel fairly comfortable with that, I'll move on to another one. Maybe I'll learn like a more tricky serve. Maybe I'll learn how to curve the ball, you know, whatever. And I just kind of build up from there. But a lot of it is just really focused on mechanics because I don't want to be thinking in there. I don't want to do anything. Notice I haven't said anything about strategy. I usually forget that part. You know, like overall strategy is probably something you're going to miss as an SC. You know, really being into like what the rules are and stuff. I get the gist of them, and I'm not going to. I feel like NIs will try to bend the rules or find a weak point where they can exploit the rules a bit. I'm probably not going to do that. But yeah, it's basically it, just mechanical competence to the point where I can just react. That would how I would go about it. As far as who would win, I have no idea.
But wait, let's Laura describe her approach. Again, same physical skill set, everything. Okay. How would you approach it, SI Dom?
Well, it would be kind of different, I guess. I mean, I'd probably ask them, well, okay, it's kind of like tennis, but not really. It's kind of like ping pong, but not really. And then I have to make sure, does the other person know what tennis and ping pong are? And if not, I got to explain that to them. And then I have to show them like the equipment that we're using. Okay, here is the racket that we're using. Here's the court. Here's the net. Here's, we have this many players. I think compared to Dave, there would be more focus probably, at least at the beginning, on the rules and how do we play the game and what is the objective? What are we trying to do in the first place? You know, and there would be some, you know, emphasis on the mechanics too, like you actually got to practice doing it to get good. You know, there'd be some of that, but I think Dave is like, okay, you know, just do it without thinking. And for me, I guess as an SI, that's impossible. I think about everything I do. I mean, I may think, you know, if I know it really well, I may think really fast, so it doesn't look like to others that I'm thinking, but I'm still thinking.
Yeah, that's my problem. I don't really think fast, so I can't do the thinking part. I don't know if that's a TI versus TE difference, but yeah, I can't do that.
It's more instinctual or visceral on your part, whereas for me, it's like, for me, it's so ingrained into my memory that kind of just seems more, I don't know, it seems more automatic. I mean, like when I'm driving a car, I'm not really thinking too much about it just because it's embedded in my muscle memory. So maybe it would be something more like, you do this enough, it becomes more automatic. That's maybe, if I was teaching somebody pickleball, that might be my approach is, you know, you keep doing it and
okay, so that's both very good and kind of like what I was wanting to have discussed. Okay, so now let's get to the scenario. So you showed up and you had a little familiarity in both scenarios, right? And Laura would like to want to maybe approach it with a little bit more, hey, let's find out what the rules are. Dave is more like, okay, let me see the basic mechanics. And okay, so two things. One, now you play. What's most likely to happen in just be honest. Who's most likely to win? You're playing
Dave. I'm gonna get my ass whomped.
Well, how much? I think that the amount of time matters. How much time we've both had the same amount of time, but like how much time have we both had to practice?
Okay. Yeah. So say you got about an hour, and then you play a game.
Oh, hour. Okay.
Okay.
Uh,
Are we both practicing the equal amount of time?
Yeah, you both show up at the tennis court or the pickleball court, and you kind of like do what you just went through, and then hey, it's go time. Let's play Tiger Woods SE versus Tiger Woods SI. Excuse me. Who's most likely to win?
I still think Tiger Woods SC is more likely. I just think they're kind of more. I don't know. I think because of the way they're wired, they just kind of pick up those things faster, and SI has to think more about it and try to OI it, and which takes time.
Yeah, in like pickleball is kind of more of a dynamic thing, right? I think if you would have put like Laura and I on the golf course, I think I would be totally screwed because there is like such a procedure to do with the golf club, and there's so much precision there. I'm just gonna miss the ball probably. Like I can't. There's no reaction there, right? So I can't do it. So like probably something more methodical. I would think I would just get killed at.
Okay, good segue. So let's just go ahead and assume from those answers, and Dave is wanting not to say, but let's just say based upon Laura's input.
Oh, we'll go with SE. I'll take it.
Okay, we'll go with SE.
Yeah.
And I
just wanted to balance
think
it out
that would be
like,
the
maybe
case
this
as
sport's
well.
a little more SE, maybe other sports more SE.
Yeah. Let's just
I'm
say
going to give you
tiebreak.
a victory so you can feel personally significant.
I appreciate that. You know me so well, Laura.
Okay, so we're going somewhere with this. So now it's a year later, and the exact same people, same skill set, only different SE and SI again. Who's more likely to win a year later?
It'll be more like a draw, probably.
Think?
Yeah, there's so many variables at hand because it's also not
There's
just
a lot of variables.
how you're going to play the game, but also how you approach training too, I think. And
I think SI might be more rigorous. It'd be easier for them to be rigorously disciplined in their training and maybe be willing to practice the same. If they're weak in a certain mechanic, they'll be willing to practice it over and over again to perfect it. And SE is like, I'm bored with that. So then SE might be disadvantaged there. But then SE is going to be able to more confidently react in a situation where it's unfamiliar and they trust their instincts more. So.
Yeah, it would be interesting because I think with SI, I would assume that you're going to probably drill into your fundamentals a lot more than the SE would. At some point, I'm going to want to learn something new, and so that makes me less good at a couple of techniques and kind of decent at a lot, which both puts me at a disadvantage and advantage, right? Having a wide variety of different shots and different angles and stuff like that, for someone that's SI, if they haven't accommodated for all those scenarios, it's going to throw them off. It's going to be difficult. But at the same time, if we're just playing,
then SI might be really good at
a million times
at one or two techniques, and they just kind of exploit it to death, and they can,
exactly.
Kill everybody.
I imagine I would get killed in the
then
serve.
If they have to use different techniques, then it's so good.
The SI person would kill the serve, I think, right? Because this is a deliberate technique that you do at the very beginning. You can plan everything out for that. And I would imagine an SI person with such a good serve, I'd be like,
and that's why I picked this example for my
theory.
I
wonder if more baseball pitchers are SI, because you're planning it out and
could be
some strategy.
The bat is more SE, the classic match.
Maybe, I wonder.
So okay, so that's good. Just a way to open this up a little bit too. It doesn't matter. It's just theoretical, right? But my theory is that say Tiger Woods, because he's really good at golf and he's been repeating repetition, ritual, SI, learn what happened, and that's why he's the best golfer. He started 2-3 years old, Michael Douglas program. His father was good in it. His mother was good with instilling ritual, and boom, he's great, right? So pickleball kind of is a hybrid, there's a lot of structure. It's like some SI and SE, kind of like wrestling, the way Dave described it to me. So it's kind of I wasn't quite sure what you guys would say. My personal opinion, I reserve the right to be wrong, is that the SI Tiger Woods would win in a year and the SE Tiger Woods would win on day one. And somewhere around there it would flip-flop because of the ritual component. So that's just a theory, just to open up the century and distinctions here a little bit. A little fun.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, go with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me go ahead and pivot now to covering things about SI. Okay, so first of all, when you guys hear the terms, the century terms in OPS about a function, what are some of those words that come to mind? One to me is I keep hearing people saying, I'm responsible for. You know, what are some other terms that kind of help people to see, you know, hey, what's got the highest rank in your brain? That's one that I always kind of look at when I'm hearing somebody talk. If I'm trying to type somebody, it's like, oh, that indicates that they're responsible for that more than something else. What are some other century terms that come to mind for you guys?
It's kind of like automatic. You just default.
Okay.
Kind of sometimes you unconscious because sometimes we don't even know how much we're using our saviors, which is why so many people type themselves upside down.
Yeah, good. So unconscious and automatic. Okay, good. Responsible for. Also here, obligated. I'm obligated to do this, right? Right. Are there some other terms? Jordan Peterson, like him or not like him, I'm sure you know who he is, and I kind of noticed because I'm SI now. No, he uses the word proclivity all the time. I mean, it's like every time he talks, he's going to say proclivity. And I have a little game I play when I listen to him. It's like, how many times are you going to say proclivity this time? Do it next time. He says a lot. But so that's another thing. It's your mind's lean proclivity towards utilizing a function, right? Yeah. So with that backdrop for SI, OI, it's that's kind of like on my board here. So like you get your brain, and you got those terms you're kind of looking for. Then where I'm going with this is that next is the word personalization pops out a lot in the OPS community. You know, for OI, SI. You know, you're personalizing things, you're organizing things, you're narrowing things subjectively towards your own experience, right? So does that sound fair in terms of kind of characterizing what OPS, SI, OI is?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure. Sometimes I miss these things. I get corrected from time to time. So that's my learnings, my understanding. Then next, it's like, okay, I'm going to transition to what, and I know when you're typing someone or when you're looking and trying to evaluate something, you don't necessarily look at maybe the products, but I think there are some products that might be more likely to flow to characterize folks. And I know in other personality code systems, there's a little bit more emphasis, I think, on those types of things. Whereas in OPS, they're trying to look at the NI pattern under the hood and focus more on that to do typing or whatever. But I got another term here, TSM. So to me, SI is about formed impressions that are subjective to the user. That's something that, for right or wrong, I kind of cling to. Is that when I describe this to folks in my family or people out in the street, it's like, what the hell are you talking about? What's this SI? It's like, well, to me, it's like a personalized, subjective impression from a sensory experience that I'm going to kind of retain and carry forward with me. But then I was like, okay, there's 3 dimensions, and bear with me here, but what are the 3 dimensions that you might have those impressions ordered around? So I'm gonna give you guys a hint. So Dave's in Berlin, Laura's up in Minnesota, and I'm down in Texas, right? So it turns out Laura and I are in the same time zone, but if we weren't, I might
one of the dimensions
order this conversation around 3 different time zones, so to speak.
Okay.
So that's what the T stands for, right?
Time.
So to me, timing has a lot about the ordering of this personalized, narrowed in sensory experience, right? So what do you think the S and the M stand for?
Well, I was thinking like location, which begins with an L, but maybe like S could be like sight. And maybe M is like movement, like literally going through the motions and getting that muscle memory.
That's very good. The S is very close to what I propose the answer is. Dave, you got any guess for what that is? You're ordering the personalized sensory for yourself around these dimensions. I know this is weird.
I have no idea. Sorry. No guesses.
Okay, enough of the play. So to me, and I mostly want to set up this way to have a little fun because Laura wants me to have some any fun. So this is kind of a little bit of a way to do that. Although talking about SI terms, it's time, space, and matter to me. Oh. So when I think of like the outflow, the products, you know, if you're taking this personalized sensory engagement and you're kind of like encoding it in your mind and you're kind of ordering it around, you know, the world we live in. You said sight, very good. Space is what I recommend, but I guess both apply, and matter. So like, you know, if you're going to utilize SI, which in other words, why else have it, right? You don't have it just because you have a proclivity to it. You have it ultimately for some use, like SC, like Dave referred to for boxing in that particular example. It's got a product to it, right? To me, that's kind of what happens. You tend to be organizing things around those three dimensions, and I'm just positing that for the community or whoever's listening.
Right. Maybe well, I just have a question because those first two dimensions, in particular, time and space, like they sound very masculine sensory. I'm just kind of wondering, like, would somebody with feminine sensory identify with that, or would they be doing a little different, or would they be struggling more, or would they, I mean.
You know, well, it's a good time to say in our next episode, we're going to have a feminine SI savior, Anna from the community, on episode 3. So that's a good segue to that. We could definitely steer some conversation in that direction. So yeah, good question. They do tend to, you know, and that's the case. The three of us all have masculine sensory. So maybe subconsciously that was part of me posing these questions. I'm not quite sure. But in any case, yeah, good thing to explore. But generally speaking, right, again, to me, I'm like thinking, you know, I know there's just a lot of resistance to like not trying to type people by what they do and what the products are, but more like what the brain processing is. And I get it, you know, that's cool. That's NI, which typing in this community is an NI game because, you know, you're creating those boxes, right? But fundamentally, you have this stratification of these 8 functions and everybody does everything. And you're going to tend to utilize those and then excel or have outflow products, right? So I'm kind of like framing it that way. So I would suggest to me some of the things that, whether it's inside of OPS or outside of OPS in the whole typology world, tends to be traits that flow from SI, and see what you guys think, right? So of course I got it on a whiteboard. So forget lists because I'm not quite sure that makes a lot of sense. But the first one is, though, lists, like summaries and lists. So what I started hearing from folks when I didn't think I had SI is like, oh yeah, you have it. And one of the things they kept saying is their evidence was, oh, you create lists, you create summaries. Here's your conversation and you'll summarize it, or you'll detail this, and this, right? So that's one thing that I heard. And I'll go through these and then get you guys' opinion on whether or not this is fair or not. Another thing is, and this is something that maybe not as universal, but conversational recall is another thing that folks kind of pointed me to as evidence of SI. I know I'm really good with that. Like if I had a conversation series with somebody, I'm going to remember who said what, when, where, and all that kind of stuff real easily, right? So at least in my case, if I'm masculine SI, I guess that's part of why. I'm not quite sure, but that's another one. Spatial orderings and storage of things, right? So I guess it's the Martha's.
Sorry, can you move the board up a little higher, please?
Oh, okay, yeah.
There you go. So you see that bottom one, yeah.
Yeah. So of course I can't read it because it's backwards on the screen. So let me cheat. So that third one is
it's forward when I see it.
Yeah, spatial. Yeah, we'll go read that one out. Spatial orderings and storage, right? So you tend to think like a Martha Stewart or somebody like that, you know. You know, they have boxes, everything's stored in its space and all that kind of stuff. It may or may not apply to all SI users, but it kind of goes along with that, you know, stereotype or the product that might flow, etc. Procedures and steps is another thing that I heard, and I know I'm guilty of that for sure. Timelines, things across a timeline. You hear that expression a lot in the community, right? And then the last one is words and acronyms, so sensory, as we call it, right? So those are some things that I wanted to get you guys' opinion on if we were to take this as an exercise, the three of us, and to kind of like say yes or no, would these things be fair characterizations that somebody whose mind is oriented towards ordering things in time, space, and matter in the century, that might be things that they might do well or not?
If you talk to someone with feminine SI, they probably wouldn't say that they're good at those things, even though they do them, I think. And that's one thing to point out. I think the timelines thing is probably more masculine SI. I don't know that feminine SI does that. I could be wrong though. But I think, yeah, a lot of those, like, yeah, you called it products. Like these are like things that you're probably going to be doing if you're SI, but anyone can do them. But I guess having that function lends itself to it makes sense to me. Yeah, it seems like.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with it. I mean, yeah, that looks pretty accurate to me. The only thing that maybe number 6, like the acronyms, I almost see that more as an any thing. I mean, if you have any SI in your stack, you also have any, but sometimes I like any is more imaginative that way. Like they'll come up with these clever acronyms to help them remember, because maybe they don't, maybe they're SI, they aren't as confident in just going off of SI alone.
Yeah. Like iTaco felt very any. I feel like that's something that because it's kind of funny and it's cute at the same time, and then it actually represents like something like I can imagine like.
But then the part about words, I think, you know, like SI, especially masculine SI, they're very sensitive to like words and the correct word choice.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's another thing, you know, and Anna from the communities could be next week, so we can ask her that question as well. I'll try to retain that in my head here and ask her, you know, hey, feminine SI versus masculine, you know, how does that look? You know, because I don't know. I've been told I have masculine SI, so I can't really relate to what feminine SI is going to do versus not, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, cool. So I just wanted to kind of get that in the conversation too, because again, you know, for anybody listening, you know, if anything in here is not resonating or it's, oh, you got that wrong, hey, please feel free to pipe in the comments or send us a note or whatever, because the purpose here is to try to get our arms around this collectively together and, you know, call it my femininity or whatever, crowdsourcing. I don't mind being wrong. I'm just offering my perspective of what I've learned after a year. And, you know, a lot of things I had wrong coming into the community, and I'm just trying to work with you guys and echo back through this series things that maybe illuminate and clarify for folks what is and is not the right way to look at what SI is. So that's what that's all about. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is I got one last fishbowl activity here, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pull out fishbowl. We got one of them for each of us, and so anything that in this or otherwise on SI that, Laura, you'd like to say, like a recap or something that resonated with you in this that you think really would be worthy of summarizing here at the end of this episode to feedback to folks that might be listening to this. Maybe somebody who just joined OPS and they're confused the hell like I was. Like, what the hell is SI and OPS? I had no clue. I had no clue I had it. So kind of put it in words for them. What from here you think might be good worth illuminating?
Well, I think I see SI as kind of more like organizing the sensory for yourself and kind of through repetition and just making it more orderly. And it's less trusting of just winging it, you know, that's more SE. Like they don't want to deal with like unexpected. They want to know, they want to be able to predict, and they know how they're going to deal with it, and they're more okay with repetition and, you know, doing something again and again to kind of get that optimization so it can be more automated.
Okay. Yeah. Excellent. How about yourself, Dave? I'm going to skip myself because I've done too much talking already. want to hear what you guys say, Dave. What kind of sticks out that you think if somebody's that's new to the community, or even somebody who's been in it a while who maybe doesn't quite get the distinction during whatever conversations they're having, what do you think might be good to say?
I think in the beginning, it might be just good to kind of split the function in half. So if, as far as SE is doing, I think it's kind of getting rid of the whole MBTI like stereotypes and stuff, and just seeing it as like S versus OE, and seeing SI as S and OI together, right? So I think that would probably better to break it down like that, where it's like it's both sensory. So sensory means what? The here and now, the what can be perceived without context, right? The context is more the intuition, right? The what is the sensory, right? So start there. You got that. That's your S, right? And then also what this function is doing is OE, right? So we're gonna prioritize change and prioritize new. And so you combine those together, and then basically, what's happening is you are prioritizing new sensory experiences, whether that's like, it's not necessarily, sliding down a slide or something, but, it could be like new data, new anything. So you're constantly looking for the new in the immediate environment. That would be the SE, I would say. It's hard to kind of nutshell it, I think, but so sorry, Laura, what were you saying?
Oh, you can finish. Go ahead.
So whereas S and OI, a little harder for me to define, obviously, but they're still looking at the sensory as well. So they're still sensors. But I would guess that since OI is the function that is more concerned with the path, right? It's more concerned with the known than the unknown. Then with the sensory, we're paying attention to what is the same and focusing on essentially what is the same. And that's a little abstract. I don't know what you could do with that, but I feel like you should start with that as the baseline, just so people aren't getting hooked on these, SE people where you can jump over a fence. You can know those anecdotes later, but if you learn them too fast, you're going to start typing people based on that, right? And anyway, I hope that made some sense. But
yeah, it did. And also as a kind of a little segue, in episode 5, Jason, who is ESTJ, and Habib, who's been in the community for a long time like you guys and is a real good typer, are going to come on and kind of like do some type markers for SI. So
cool.
We're kind of setting them up over 7-part series here. We'll have different themes and stuff, but this is kind of serving as a foundation to kind of like allow them to illuminate their learnings that they're going to be working for. That'll be a couple, 2 or 3 weeks away from now.
Well, Brian,
yeah, go ahead.
This would be a good time to maybe kind of preview what's going to be coming for the upcoming episodes.
Yeah.
Our next episode will be Anna, who's an FM ISTJ. So we'll get her perspective, and also maybe hear about, she's play last, so hear about how play last works as well.
Yeah, so we haven't really dissected it all really well by the animals yet. Some of that's into place, but mostly by the functions and the modalities and stuff. But we have 7 series coming up. So this is number 2 of 7. Maybe we'll go with 8 or 9. I don't know. There's other people. If it makes sense to, we'll kind of be adaptive. We're going to, in the spirit of what Laura said, let's keep this any fun. So we'll script it, but we'll also show some any adaptability here or whatever kind of adaptability that is. And so, yeah, the big picture is just, again, to illuminate what SI is and what it's not by showing its different power and different positions in the stack, the grant stack, as well as with the combinations with animals and modalities, just standard 512 OPS stuff. And so the next one will be with Anna, and it'll be the focus there is going to be kind of like the personalization effect and also feminine SI. So that'll be a good contrast from what we dealt here, because the 3 of us have masculine sensory. Otherwise, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for us today. I really appreciate you guys, Laura, you giving us a chance to use your channel for this, and Dave staying up late in the evening for us.
Yeah.
I'm up late anyway.
So thank you very much, Dave, for being a guest, and we loved hearing your SE perspective on things. And Dave has a YouTube channel, so I will link to his YouTube channel in the description. So don't forget to subscribe to his channel if you want to hear more from Dave. He does some wonderful interviews with various people from the OPS community.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to do that. Yeah, Dave, you do an outstanding job. I was telling Dave that I just listened to his interview of Super Dave just a couple nights ago. I'd never seen it, and it was a very, very good interview. I learned quite a bit about Dave that I didn't know. So thanks for what you do, Dave. It's enriching the community. And Laura, and with that, I guess until episode 3, we'll say thanks for joining us. All right.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.